all about. Someplace there's an opportunity for a void, and we keep that same spirit and faith moving forward right now as we move into this afternoon period. So we still have approximately 42 of our members on scene right now. We have our technical rescue contingency still on scene. As soon as they're finished, they're going to be right back on those areas taking care of that. So
one last piece of information. I was asked at some point yesterday about the mass transit system under Market Street. That has been fully checked. There's no issues, no structural issues at all, although SEPTA, in coordination with the fire department, because of the work that's being done, has reduced speed on the trolleys to, I believe, 15 to 20 miles an hour. That may be lifted, probably be lifted later on today as a result of the work concluding, as I mentioned, sometime probably this afternoon. With that, I'll be glad to try to answer the questions that I can answer.
Mayor, are you saying that once a plan is made for a demolition like this one, there's no subsequent inspection by city officials to make sure they're going according to the plan? Because a couple of experts we talked to said there, and one of them is the demolition company here in Philadelphia, said there never should have been an unbraced freestanding wall above a neighboring business that was in occupation. Are there any inspections once they submit those plans?
There are a variety of, as I understand it, post-demolition inspections. As I mentioned, in this particular case, when the inspector was out, the building in question, 2136, there had been no demolition activity on that particular building. It was 2134 that was under demolition, and there were no unsafe conditions found at that time. There are other inspections that are made. I'll turn that part over to Commissioner Williams.
Inspection is required was made. That's an issue.
Why don't we answer that question?
The question, the subsequent demolitions have to do with when the material is actually down on the ground, which is the breaking of the floor, to ensure that all material is actually placed appropriately, the property is graded, and the holes are posted and plugged in. There are no subsequent inspections between that that occurred to indicate that there was any safe condition. That it was any safe condition. So unsafe condition when he made his initial inspection on 542.
Wait, there was an initial inspection. Were there subsequent inspections?
No, there were no subsequent questions at that point in time because again, the post-secondary inspections occurred when most of the materials on the ground, and that had progressed to that part.
For about a week, and you guys never went out to go check the status of that demolition and if it was safe?
When we went out on 514, we had no indication that there were any unsafe conditions. We did not receive any subsequent reports about the demolition of that project. No.
Would bracing the wall have been standard procedure?
I can't speculate at this time. I'm still looking at it.
The initial inspection was done, correct?
The initial inspection was done on 514.
Right.
So
then you were called to another
consist?
address, and you were saying there was no work done here at the time when you went to the other address, the incorrect address?
That's correct. The initial inspection was done on 2134. When we came out on 2134 on May 14th, there was no reports of any violations or unsafe conditions at that point in time.
Right. And so from your initial inspection, the day this fell in yesterday, El and I had not seen this.
No, that's correct.
And that's normal. That is normal procedure. Normal because is it normal?
Again, we're looking into that. No, it's not. We did not follow up, but we're definitely looking into that.
Commissioner, the building was 4 stories. There were unsupported walls at each level of the 4-story structure. And construction folks say with each story, you should be bracing that unbraced wall.
Again, those are the things that we're looking into, and we certainly will address that at the appropriate time, but we're looking into it.
I mean, all of that, all of those issues and many others, of course, will be a part of a very wide-ranging investigation that, of course, since yesterday has started. That involves the Department of License and Inspections, the Fire Department, the Police Department, and OSHA, who you saw out here yesterday. They were on scene yesterday, and there'll be an active component of a very wide-ranging investigation. Yes.
what happened leading up to the collapse?
Well, as you can imagine, no, I would not be talking personally to the crane operator. The crane operator has been interviewed by the appropriate folks, but that is not something that I would do. I don't have any information about that, and B, because it's an active investigation, even if I knew, I wouldn't be able to comment on something that he told someone else.
And even a few people who became rescuers on scene, that they
I'm
noticed
sorry,
red flags.
I didn't hear the first part.
Okay, I'll repeat. So we spoke to a construction worker as well as a rescuer on scene who said he noticed red flags surrounding this demolition process. Were you ever made aware of that? Was the city ever aware that other construction workers and projects in the surrounding areas were concerned about the way this thing was being demolished?
Well, I mean, to answer the first obvious part of your question, of course, I would not be aware of complaints made by individuals, and I'm not personally aware that we're aware or the city government was aware. But again, as a part of a very wide-ranging investigation, every one of those complaints or supposed complaints or complaint made anywhere through any particular mechanism, we want to know where they are, what happened to them, who did what with them. But again, 24 hours into the incident, we have a lot of work to do to figure out why what happened yesterday happened, how did it happen, and certainly going forward, how we can best prevent any incident like this happening anywhere in the city.
If that building had been demolished, but the one next to it was still occupied.
I was asked that question yesterday. I think as you travel around the city, you will see one of two things taking place pretty much all the time. One, whether in a commercial or in a residential circumstance, buildings get demolished all the time in the city of Philadelphia with active buildings next to them. And when you take the proper and necessary steps, that is successful and safe. You also see buildings built in this city all the time with active buildings right next to them. This happens not just in this city, but all across the United States of America. Something obviously went wrong here yesterday, and possibly in the days leading up to it. That's what the investigation is for. But I mean, the simple answer to your question is you have demolitions all the time with active buildings next to them, and they're done very safely in this city all the time.
Who in your office specifically would have been responsible for those follow-up inspections after the demolition?
I didn't hear that.
The procedures normally our building inspectors assigned to the district. They're the ones responsible for, once they get the permit, following the job to its completion.
Have there been issues with this particular building inspector who handled this case?
That's something that we're certainly looking into right now. There's no indication that there was any previous issues with this particular contract.
What is
Let
the
me take one last question. Bob, what do you got?
I hope you could address the broad regulatory structure. Can anybody with $300 in a pickup truck become a demolition contractor?
I think the short answer is no. I mean, the commissioner can give you a longer answer, but the short answer is no.
Commissioner, the building inspector responsible for this.
Yeah, how about that answer?
To answer your question, we do look at the history in terms of making sure that they're compliant in terms of the taxes and making sure that they have all of the requirements to be a contractor.
Well, what are those requirements? Does somebody have to demonstrate proficiency at demolition?
On specific jobs, yes. In terms of electrical contractor or plumbing contractor, we're not specific to demolition.
So this particular contractor did not have to show any proficiency or history of doing a job like this
The
successfully.
code doesn't require that.
Now, Mayor, do you have a comment on that?
Again, we've experienced a significant tragedy. Yesterday, again, that we have at least 4 different entities looking into what happened. We will learn a great deal as a result of this tragedy. And again, to the extent that we have information, whenever we have it, we're going to share it. I think it's not going to be particularly helpful at the moment to offhand give individual or personal opinions about process and procedure. We'll have fuller response to many of those issues, obviously, as the